In your house, one of you is the problem with money, and you have both quietly decided it is the other one. One of you did the food shop this week and came home slightly under what you expected and felt good about it. Really good. Better than a food shop should make anyone feel. The other one booked something, a weekend, a dinner, a thing you did not need, and felt good about that. Same evening, same house. Two people who both think they are the sensible one. Here is what I want to show you in the next half hour. You did not end up with each other by accident. You are not badly matched, and you cannot fix this by turning one of you into the other one, which is what almost every couple spends years trying to do. There is a much simpler thing going on, and once you see it, most of the arguing stops being necessary. Start with the part nobody says out loud. You picked each other, and you picked each other partly for this. Think back to the beginning. Really, the beginning. If you are the careful one, something about them was a relief. They booked things. They said yes to evenings you would have talked yourself out of. Being near them was like being let off something. And if you are the spender, something about them made you feel safe in a way you had not felt before. Somebody was watching. Somebody had a plan. You could relax slightly because they were not relaxing. That is not a coincidence, and it is not unusual. People are very often drawn to somebody who easily does the thing they cannot do at all. And then, this is the sad part, and it happens to nearly everyone. You both spend the next 10 years trying to remove that exact quality from each other. The careful one starts trying to make the spender careful. The spender starts trying to make the careful one relax. Both of you are working very hard to destroy the thing that attracted you in the first place. Nobody does this deliberately. It happens one small comment at a time, and the comments are tiny. That is why nobody can point to when it started. It is not a row. It is, "Did you need that?" It is a small pause before saying that sounds nice. It is asking what something cost in a voice that is trying very hard to sound casual. And from the other side, it is just as small. It is a slight roll of the eyes. It is saying you only live once in a tone that means you are boring. It is booking something and mentioning it afterwards, on purpose, because mentioning it first was exhausting last time. None of those are arguments. You could not report any one of them to a friend, but there are 3 of them a week for 11 years, and that is roughly 1,700 small corrections each. So by the time it feels like a real problem, neither of you can remember a version of this that was fine, and you both assume the other one has always been like this. They have not. You have both been slowly training each other, and it worked. Let us take them one at a time, and let us be fair to both, because both are misunderstood in the same way. The saver is not saving for a thing. That is the first mistake everyone makes about them. Ask a saver what the money is for, and most of them cannot tell you. They will say something vague, security, the future, just in case. That is because they are not saving for an object. They are saving for a feeling, and the feeling is the absence of a particular fear. Every pound in the account is a small piece of quiet, and every purchase, however small, takes a piece of the quiet away, which is why the reaction seems so out of proportion to you. You spent 40. They did not lose 40. They lost a bit of the only thing that makes them feel all right, and there is no way to explain that at the kitchen table without sounding ridiculous. So they say something about the budget instead, and now you are having a conversation about £40, which was never the subject. Here is the part the spender in the house rarely sees. Savers are usually worse to themselves than they are to you. They will say yes to something for you and no to the same thing for themselves. They will replace your worn-out coat and keep wearing theirs. And they very often cannot enjoy the thing they did agree to. They are on holiday and they are still counting. It takes them until day 3 to stop, and by then it is nearly over. Nobody envies that. It is not a superpower. It is a low, constant hum that never quite switches off, and most of them have never described it to anybody, including you. There are a few tells if you want to know whether this is you or them. A saver checks the balance when nothing is wrong, not to find something out. They already know the number. They check it because seeing it helps for about 10 minutes. A saver has a figure in their head that they have never told anybody. It is the number below which they start to feel unwell. Ask them what it is, and most of them can answer instantly and are surprised they can. And a saver does not relax when a good month happens. Everyone else in the house lifts slightly. They quietly move the extra somewhere and say nothing, because in their experience, good months are borrowed. One more, and this is the one that changes how the other person hears all of it. Most savers are not doing this for themselves. They are doing it for the household, and usually for a specific fear about a specific person in it. Ask a saver what they are frightened of, and you will not get a number. You will get a scene. It is usually a small one. Being unable to pay for something a child needs. Having to ask a parent for help at 45. Standing at a till and having a card refused with people behind them. That is what the money is holding off. Not poverty in the abstract. One particular moment they have already imagined in detail. Now the other one, and this needs the same care, because the spender gets described as the childish one, and that is rarely what is happening. The spender is not buying things, they are buying moments. Look at what they spend on, and it is nearly always an experience or a thing that unlocks one, the meal out, the trip, the item that makes a Saturday feel different from a Tuesday. They are not trying to own more. They are trying to make time feel like something. And underneath that, there is a fear too. It is just pointed the other way. The saver is afraid of the future. The spender is afraid of the present going past, unused. That is why a cancelled plan can land so heavily on them. You cancelled a dinner. They heard another ordinary week, and there are only so many, and the spender pays a price too, which the saver rarely sees. Most spenders know. They are not oblivious. There is a private moment, usually late, usually alone, when they look at something and think, that was probably too much. They just do not say it, because the moment they do, they hand you the argument. So, they carry it quietly and then buy something else to stop carrying it, which is the loop. Being married to somebody careful can make that worse rather than better, because when every purchase gets discussed, the only way to enjoy one is to not mention it. And now you are a person hiding a jumper, which is not who anybody wanted to be. The tells are just as clear on this side and just as misread. A spender is usually generous, genuinely. They are often the one who pays for other people, remembers birthdays properly, and cannot bear anyone in the group missing out because of money. A spender talks about time more than things. Listen, and you will hear it before the kids get older, while we still can. It has been a rough few months. We deserve something, and a spender very rarely regrets an experience. Ask them about something they spent too much on, and they will defend a trip to the end and shrug about a coat, which points at the fear underneath, and it is the same shape as the savers, a specific scene already imagined. For a lot of spenders, it is arriving somewhere late, being 60 and realizing the good years were spent being careful about a future that then arrived and was fine anyway. Somebody in their family who saved for a life they never got to have. That is not recklessness. That is a person running from something, exactly like the one across the table. They are just running in opposite directions, which is why it looks like the other one is chasing them. Before we go on, most people are certain which one they are, and a decent number of them are wrong. The mistake is judging yourself by how you feel rather than by what you do. Savers often feel wasteful because they notice every pound leaving. Spenders often feel careful because they think about money constantly. They just think about it differently. So, use behavior instead. 2 questions. First, when an unexpected amount arrives, a refund, a bonus, something you did not plan on, what is your first thought, not what you do? Your first thought in the first second. One of you thinks about where to put it. The other one thinks about what it could be. That is the whole diagnostic, and it takes a second, and it is very hard to fake to yourself. Second, which feels worse? Spending 60 on something you later decide was silly, or missing something good because you did not want to spend 60. Both are uncomfortable, but one of them will keep you up, and the other one you will have forgotten by Friday. Whichever keeps you up is the fear you are managing. Now, the thing I wanted to tell you is that you are both more extreme than you would be on your own. Watch what happens over years. You spend a bit, they tighten a bit to compensate. You feel watched, so you stop mentioning things. They notice you have gone quiet, so they watch more closely. You feel more watched, and so on, for a decade. Neither of you chose to end up where you are. You each moved a little further out to balance the other one and then kept going. Here is the test, and it is uncomfortable in a useful way. Imagine you lived alone. Same income, same bills, nobody watching, nobody to answer to. Would you save exactly as hard as you do now? Would you spend exactly as freely? Almost nobody says yes. The saver admits they would probably loosen up. The spender admits they would probably rein it in soon, which means neither of you is at your own setting. You are both sitting at the far end of a rope, pulling, and the reason you are pulling that hard is that somebody is pulling the other way. That is worth knowing because it means the problem is not either of your characters. It is the position you have both been pushed. There are 2 consequences of that, and both are worth naming. The first is that neither of you is arguing with a person anymore. You are arguing against a position. You are not responding to what they said about the coffee machine. You are responding to 11 years of small comments that this one is the latest of, which is why the size never fits. The response is not to the event, it is to the pile. The second is that whoever gives ground first feels like they have lost, not lost the argument, lost the position they had been holding for a decade to stop the household drifting the other way. That is why it does not resolve on its own. 2 reasonable people, both of whom would happily move to the middle, both convinced that if they move first, the whole thing slides. So, it has to be said out loud once, not as a concession, as a description. Something like, "I do not think I would be this careful if I lived on my own, and I do not think you would be that free either. I think we have pushed each other out here." That sentence does something almost nothing else does. It takes the blame off both of you and puts it on the arrangement, which is the only thing that can be changed. Here is a good piece of evidence that this is a position rather than a personality. Couples swap. Not often, but it happens, and it happens fast. Someone loses a job. Somebody gets seriously ill. A parent dies and leaves something or leaves a mess. And within about 3 months, the spender in the house is the careful one, and the saver has quietly started booking things. That should be impossible if these were fixed traits. It is not impossible because they are not traits. They are responses to how safe the situation currently feels, and when the situation changes, the response changes with it. Which is worth remembering when you are describing your partner to yourself. You are not married to a spender. You are married to somebody who is currently spending for reasons that made sense to a version of them you have possibly never met. That is a much easier person to live with than the one in your head. There is an old idea that is useful here, and it is about 2,000 years old. Epictetus taught that almost all our difficulties come from trying to control things that are not ours to control and neglecting the one thing that is, what we ourselves do next. Applied here, that is blunt. You cannot make your partner want what you want. 10 years of comments have already proved it. What you can change is your own end of the rope. And when one person stops pulling, the other one usually moves back toward the middle without being asked. Not always, but often, and much faster than anybody expects. Before the useful part, 3 things almost every couple tries. All 3 fail, and it is worth knowing why so you can stop paying for them. This is the main one. If they would just see it my way, this would be fine. It never works, and there is a reason beyond stubbornness. You are asking them to give up the thing that manages their fear. The saver is not going to relax while relaxing feels like danger. The spender is not going to stop while stopping feels like waste. And there is a worse version. Sometimes it works, and you find you have married a slightly flattened version of the person you liked. This sounds like togetherness. For a spender and a saver, it usually creates a supervisor and a suspect. Every transaction is visible, which means every transaction is commentable, which means one of you starts explaining purchases nobody asked about preemptively, which is the sound of a person who feels watched. Fully separate money has its own problems, and we will get to the middle option shortly. But total pooling between 2 people this far apart puts one of them permanently on the wrong side of a desk. You have probably tried one. It probably lasted 5 weeks. An app gives you more information about a problem that was never caused by a lack of information. Neither of you was confused about what things cost. You disagreed about what money is for. A spreadsheet cannot settle that, and after a month of color coding, the same argument comes back wearing the same jacket. There is a 4th one that deserves a mention because it is the most damaging, and it never gets called a strategy. Stopping mentioning things. It starts small and it starts sensibly. You buy something, you know there will be a look, so you do not bring it up. Nothing is hidden exactly, it just does not come up. Then it becomes a bag that goes upstairs before anyone sees it. Then it is a separate card, quietly. Then it is a version of your finances that your partner does not have. Almost nobody sets out to do that. It grows out of being questioned enough times that not being questioned becomes worth more than being honest. If you recognize that from either side, as the person doing it, or as the person who now realizes why the answers have become vaguer, deal with that first. Everything else in this video is easier afterwards, and none of it works while that is still going on. 4 things. The first 2 are structure, the second 2 are conversation, and the structure is what makes the conversation possible. 1 joint account for everything shared: rent, bills, food, children, holidays. Both of you put in, and how much each puts in is a separate conversation about fairness, not about spending. Then 2 smaller accounts, 1 for each. Put the same amount into both, whatever you can manage. That money is yours, fully. The saver can hoard theirs and feel the quiet. The spender can spend every penny of theirs on something ridiculous. And crucially, neither of you comments on the other. That last rule is the whole thing. Without it, you have built the same argument with extra admin. Inside the joint money, agree on an amount. Under that, either of you can spend without asking, without mentioning it, and without anybody raising an eyebrow later. Set it low enough to be real. If your arguments happen at 40, do not set it at 500 and congratulate yourselves. Couples who do this describe the same thing, and it is never about money. They say the house got quieter. When the next argument starts, try saying the thing underneath instead of the thing on the receipt. Not, you spent too much, but when money goes out unexpectedly, I get frightened, and I do not know how to say that without sounding like your parent. No, you never let me enjoy anything, but I am worried we are saving for a life we are too old to have. Those are hard sentences. They are also very difficult to argue with, which is exactly why they work. Something small and slightly silly that works better than it should. Alternate who decides. 1 month they choose what the spare money does. Next month you do. No negotiating, no vetoing, no commentary afterwards. It sounds childish. What it does is give each of you a guaranteed turn, which removes the thing that makes people fight hardest. The fear that if you do not fight now, you will never get your way at all. And one more thing, which is not a technique but changes how all 4 land. Say the useful part of what they do out loud, once, without a joke attached. If you are the careful one, tell them that most of the things you are glad you did were their idea. That is almost certainly true. Left alone, you would have had a very tidy decade with not much in it. And if you are the spender, tell them that the reason you can book anything at all is that somebody has been quietly holding the floor up underneath you for years. That is also true, and they have never once been thanked for it, because nobody thanks anybody for an absence of disaster. A lot of people watch something like this, agree with it, and then do nothing, because the opening move is the hard bit. So, here is the opening move. Do not do it on the back of an argument. If something happened this week, wait. Anything you say in the 48 hours after a row will be heard as part of the row. Do not open with them. Open with yourself, and open with the weakest version of it. Something like, I have been thinking about why money is tense between us, and I think a lot of it is coming from my side. And then stop. That sentence does something specific. It removes the thing they have been bracing for. Nobody has a defense ready for someone taking responsibility, so the argument they had loaded does not get used, and you get an actual conversation instead. Then say the fear, not the position, but the fear. I get frightened when money goes out unexpectedly, or I am worried we are being sensible in the only years we can use. And then the important part, which almost everybody skips, ask them theirs, and do not respond to the answer for at least 10 seconds. Do not agree, not affix, not explain why it is unfounded. Just let it sit there long enough that they know it was heard, because if the first thing you do is solve it, they will not tell you the next one. Both of those sentences are about 10 seconds long, neither of them costs anything, and they do more for the next argument than any account structure, because they change what the other person thinks the argument is about. You are not trying to win, you are trying to stop being opponents about it, which you never were. Put a date in the calendar, once a quarter, 20 minutes, not 2 hours. 2 rules for it. It happens whether anything is wrong. That is the whole point, because a money conversation that only happens when there is a problem will always feel like an ambush. And it has a stopping time, 20 minutes, and then it is over, even if it is not finished. Nothing good has ever been decided in the 90th minute of a conversation about money. What it does is take money out of the category of things that ambush you. If there is a date coming, the small annoyance can wait for it. Most of them will have dissolved by then, which tells you what they were worth. So, one of you is the problem, and you both think it is the other one. Neither of you is. You are 2 people managing 2 different fears, using the same bank account, and pulling harder every year because the other one is pulling too. You do not need to become each other. You needed each other precisely because you are not the same. The careful one would never have booked anything, and the other one would never have saved anything, and between you, a life got built that neither of you could have built alone. What you need is 1 account each that nobody comments on, 1 number below which nothing gets discussed, and 1 honest sentence about what you are afraid of. Start with the sentence. It is free, and it is the one that changes the temperature tonight. And if only one of you watches this, which is usually how it goes, that is still enough. You do not need them to agree with the framing. You do not need them to watch anything. You only need one end of the rope to loosen, and you happen to be holding it. One last thought, and it is the one I would want said to me. Almost every couple who fights about money believes quietly that they are the only ones this bad at it, that everybody else has some arrangement that works, and they somehow missed the meeting. They did not. This is the most common argument there is, in the most ordinary households, between people who like each other very much. It is not a sign of a bad relationship. It is a sign of 2 people who care about different things and have never been given the language for it. You have the language now. That is most of it. The next one in this series is the argument that sits underneath all of these. What happens when one of you earns significantly more, and the thing neither of you will say about it? If that is your house, subscribe, and it will find you when it goes up. And if you have not seen the first one, what couples are fighting about when they fight about money, it is on screen now. Start there.